Greetings duplicates and welcome to The Breach. In today's episode we're going to build the kitchen. My preferred kitchen has a 2 freezer setup, 1 freezer for the raw resources and the intermediate products, and a final freezer that has the final products which feeds a fridge so the duplicates can access the food easily. The gold volcano I showed you a few episodes ago is now erupting. You may also notice that I've done a slight upgrade. The second liquid lock is now made out of oil since I've broken into the oil biome. It also means I need to come up with a cooling solution for this as soon as possible. This is where we're going to build the kitchen, directly opposite the toilets, which means that once the duplicates finish their shift, they come back, use the bathroom, clean their hands, and then go and grab some food, therefore being as efficient as possible. Some of the duplicates also got an upgrade to their bedrooms, to some private quarters. You can also see that I stashed a little bit of steel away so I didn't accidentally use it. As I will be building a thermal regulator and I need to build the cooling unit for that as well, a steam turbine, I might as well use a thermal aquatuner as well, apply some extra cooling. I'll be using the thermal aquatuner to cool down a farm so we can produce some sleet wheat. To make the duplicate's life as easy as possible, I'm going to build the fridge as close to the ladders as possible. This fridge will be automatically filled up from the freezer by a auto sweeper. Because I've waited till after I've done all the research, I'll be able to make the kitchen a permanent structure, so I've got all the upgrades all ready to go. Having the gas range means I'll be able to make all the advanced food products. The simplest of those would be the surf and turf, as I have hatcheries and a fish farm that is coming online at the moment. Make sure that the conveyor loader here is placed so it'll access the freezer compartment, the fridges and both of the cooking appliances. This will take the pressure off the duplicates by doing some of the work errands automatically in the kitchen. Taking the cooked seafood and the barbecue directly from the electric grill and feeding it into the gas range ready to produce surf and turf. When building this type of freezer setup, one of 2 gases is used. You either go for chlorine, which will kill germs that it's in contact with, or you use hydrogen for the better thermal conductivity. In this setup, we're going to use hydrogen and we're going to use its lighter than air properties just to use a hood to collect the gas as we release it. The thing about building a kitchen setup like this is making sure that the autoloaders and sweepers are not placed so they can perform a loop and they'll just keep on removing things from freezers and putting them back in the same freezer. It takes me a bit longer to think about this building than, say, a self-powered oxygen maker, because I've built so many more self-powered oxygen makers, because that was one of the first things you kind of learn to do as you're building up your skills in Oni. Hopefully the auto sweeper just there will work fine. We'll find out later. Obviously we want our duplicates working in a well lit environment for that extra bonus. Just placing some conductive wire to all the buildings for when we're ready to hook this up into the grid. We are going to use hydrogen to freeze the food because of its excellent thermal properties for this job. We don't have a liquid with anywhere near the thermal properties of hydrogen until we get access to supercoolant. We've been producing clay since we broke into our first swamp biome, or marsh biome as it is, and we've been turning that clay into ceramic, so we've got quite a bit in stock and it's now time to start using some. We're going to build the insulated pipe out of ceramic because this is the best we can get until we actually get as far as insulation, which is a very late game product. So the gas piping through the kitchen has been finished. Now we need to add in some steel piping to allow the transfer of heat as efficiently as possible. Radiant gas pipes are generally built out of the ores of the metal. The exception here at the moment is steel. Steel is going to offer us the best thermal conductivity, so that's what we're going to use with inside our freezers. As I've already mentioned, we're going to use hydrogen to transfer the heat between the radiant pipe and the food. I've siphoned off some of the hydrogen produced by the self-powered oxygen maker, so I can fill up both the freezers with hydrogen. Some of the hydrogen might not make it into the freezer section itself, and that'll just float to the top of the base and something I can deal with later on. Slight problem, as I've got the gas pressure inside the base already pressurised to the maximum that a gas vent will allow. I need to lower the gas pressure by closing down the vents to allow some hydrogen to enter the base. And there we have it, the freezer is filled up with hydrogen. It's easy enough to fill up the second freezer compartment with hydrogen now. Because we are using hydrogen for its excellent thermal conductivity, we need a way of making sure that no germs are in the freezer compartments. And for that, we're going to use depleted uranium, because it's slightly radioactive and therefore will kill any germs within the freezer section. As this is a metal tile, it has high conductivity and will help chill the food that is sat on it. And here we are enclosing the final freezer compartment, making sure it's surrounded by insulated tiles. And that final tile finishes the kitchen portion of this build, so we now need to work on the cooling section. Talking of cooling, let's have a look at the gold volcano. Within those few short cycles of building the kitchen, the steam temperature has reached 200 degrees Celsius. This is exchanging heat with the crude oil and being cooled, but that won't last forever. So let's add a steam generator to act as cooling before anything gets out of hand. This steam generator will act as the cooling unit for this gold volcano while it's erupting, but it will probably be cannibalized and put into a industrial brick because we want the cooling on there so we can produce more steel and therefore produce more steam generators. One steam generator working as the cooling for the gold volcano. I seem to have left the fish farm a few cycles longer than I should have. It's fully teeming with life now, so I should finish adding the automation and powering the auto sweepers. Now that the electricity is on, everything will get sorted. The fry eggs will go to the top auto chute, all the other eggs will go to the bottom. The eggshells will be swept up and made accessible. The only thing that we'll be leaving in here is the polluted dirt. We can remove that at a later date with automation. And we just set the critter sensor. Once I've got some plants sustainably planted, we'll be able to change from algae into seeds for the food for the fish. We've hooked up the range to the natural gas. We've also piped the gas around the outside instead of going through the base. There was a problem with my recording software. It recorded exactly 1 second and then decided to stop. So I'm going to continue from where I realised it was no longer recording. I have the thermoregulator built and attached to the kitchen loop, and I'm filling it with hydrogen. The thermoregulator has a bypass on it, so allow the hydrogen to keep on circulating even when the regulator isn't activated by the automation. So I'm just checking that when we add the thermoregulator to the power grid that I'm not going to overburden part of the grid. As you can see, the thermoregulator is only 240 watts, unlike the Aquatuner that draws 1.2 kilowatts of power. But it looks like I've got plenty of headroom on that circuit. It's only drawing about 1 kilowatt of power at the moment, so I can easily hook it in without causing any problems. Yes, this setup would be so much nicer if I didn't have that hot polluted air vent just there. Or I could have built my kitchen in a different place, but this is where I wanted it after I'd already built the bathrooms, etc. I have a feeling once I've got this kitchen finalised, I will rearrange all my electricity cabling within my base. We're getting the thermoregulator hooked up to the power, but we don't necessarily want it to turn on immediately. We'll assure that by altering the automation settings. The next stage of the process is getting rid of all of the polluted air out of what will eventually be the steam room. It's not going to be anything fancy, it's going to be a hamster wheel, a battery and a gas pump. We'll then add a small amount of water for the thermoregulator to sit in to allow it to transfer temperature away from itself so it doesn't overheat in a vacuum. I appear to be having a problem building the gas pump, so I'm quickly checking that I have got gold amalgam still left in store, which I have. Over 45 tons of the stuff, so there must be another reason why things aren't being built. Well, now I can see the problem. The atmospheric suits aren't being repaired. That must have happened when I moved the location of the exosuit forge and forgot to update the repairs on it. Honestly, it's a silly error, but bases have died for less. It's also a big enough problem that it's worth monitoring directly and not just hoping your dupes will sort things out eventually. I catch the problem when we've got 3 working suits, that soon drops down to 2. And now we can return to getting rid of the polluted air in what will be the steam chamber. The gas is almost completely pumped out as well. Add a little water to the floor of the steam chamber that will act as a conductive medium for the heat. And we'll be ready to go. Now the water's been added to the steam room and we're nearly got rid of all the polluted air. The thermoregulator has done most of the cooling it needs to do and drawn down the temperature of the hydrogen gas to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Some packets of this hydrogen will be cooler than that, but this will all equal out over time. The thermoregulator has done most of the work and it now will only work intermittently, and it's still sat in a pool of water, so we are good for many cycles before we need to add a steam generator to reduce the heat in here. Now we have the freezers working and down to temperature, we will hook up the fish farm and the evolution chamber to the kitchen and get everything working as intended. And now we choose what the electric grill and the gas range are going to cook and which autoloader is going to take what product to where. Initially we're going to rely on surf and turf and barbecue to feed our duplicants, but as we further develop the base and get more seeds planted, we'll have access to better quality food. Because the food doesn't go off in the freezer, which is why we spent so much effort building them, we want to limit the amount of food that's in the fridge at any one time. 5 kilos is enough because the auto sweeper will get it fed from the freezer directly. And finally we remove the old kitchen setup, which has done us good for just under 400 cycles. Every time you produce a new food product, you need to update your autoloaders. I had a little bit of a problem here because I was too eager to update the autoloaders. Surf and turf didn't show up in the list. I was a little confused. I ended up having to go back and watch the replay to make sure that I wasn't just an idiot and couldn't see it for looking too hard. The surf and turf ends up in the correct freezer and is instantly frozen because of the temperature difference. We then add the surf and turf to the fridge storables list and we are done. While building my fish farm, I've made a mistake. I've put the autoloaders in slightly the wrong place. If I'd built them all one tile to the left, this would have worked. At the moment, any fish fillets that end up on the left hand side of the aquarium don't get transported to the kitchen automatically. Looking at this design, I feel like it could do with a few tweaks to improve it. The design at present has me having 2 evolution areas in close proximity. I should be able to combine them and make it easier to remove food products and extra things like eggshells. Thankfully, all I need to do is reorientate the autoloaders and stack them vertically. The 400 cycles really does make a difference in their skill levels, deconstructing and then rebuilding things in a blink of an eye. These last 2 additions to the fish farm will pick up the meat and the fish fillets and transport them directly to the freezer compartment in the kitchen. This final little bit of automation should save me a lot of time with the duplicants. Occasionally a duplicant will come along and manually transport the fish fillets or the meat to the kitchen, but generally the automation should get it all done without their assistance. So I'd say that's the fully automated kitchen completed, and my mind can turn to what's going to happen in the next episode. I do have a list of things I want to get done quite quickly, but I think the main priority will be building an industrial brick of some description. I haven't decided whether to go with a hot or cold brick yet, but I feel that is the main priority seeing as we've run out of steel. And the lack of steel will be hindering the process of building a better base. But before we go, let's just see what blueprints I managed to unlock from Clay this week. Thank you for watching, and I hope you join me next week to build the industrial brick.